Thank you very much for reading these beautiful verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, Kavalya and Avani. So, very grateful to both of you. Thanks a lot. We'll be doing starting verse number third of first canto today, SP 1.1.3. And we'll recite the verse and we'll go through the details of this verse. I will be covering only two paragraphs of the verse today, and rest will be covered by the other devotees as we go on with our study of Srimad Bhagavatam. So the verse is Nigamakalpataroragalitam phalam Shukhamukhadam Ridrava Samyutam Pibat Bhagavatam Alayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavuka. So sorry, I'm going to mute. Some maybe unknowingly be unmuted. I'm going to mute everybody. Okay. Nigamakalpataroragalitam phalam Shukhamukhadam Ridravasamayutam Pibat Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha. Synonyms: Nigam, the Vedic literatures; Kalpataroho, the desire tree; Galitam, fully matured; Phalam, fruit; Sukha, Srila Sukdev Goswami, the original speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam; Mukhat, from the lips of; Amrit, nectar; Drav, semi-solid and soft, and therefore easily swallowable; Samyutam, perfect in all respects; Pibat, do relish it; Bhagavatam, the book dealing in the science of the eternal relationship with the Lord; Rasam, juice, that which is relishable; Alayam, until liberation or even in a liberated condition; Muhu, always; Aho, oh; Rashikaha, those who are full in knowledge of mallows; Bhuvi, on the earth; Bhavukaha, expert and thoughtful. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, PJ. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Srila Sukdev Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Purport. In the two previous shlokas, it has been definitely proved that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the sublime literature which surpasses all other Vedic scriptures due to its transcendental qualities. It is transcendental to all mundane activities and mundane knowledge. In this shloka, it is stated that Srimad Bhagavatam is not only a superior literature, but it is the ripened fruit of all Vedic literatures. In other words, it is the cream of all the Vedic knowledge. Considering all this, patient and submissive hearing is definitely essential. With great respect and attention, one should receive the message and lessons imparted by the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Vedas are compared to the desire tree because they contain all things knowable by men. They deal with mundane necessities as well as spiritual realization. The Vedas contain regular principles of knowledge covering social, political, religious, economic, military, medicinal, chemical, physical, and metaphysical subject matter, and all that may be necessary to keep the body and soul together. Above and beyond, all this are specific direction for spiritual realization. Regulative knowledge involves a gradual raising of the living entity to the spiritual platform. And the highest spiritual realization is knowledge that the personality of Godhead is the reservoir of all spiritual taste or rasas. So I will take verses up to this point today. So we'll just recite our prayers that we recite for before we recite Srimad Bhagavatam classes. नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् क्षमतां स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनः हृदयन्तःस्थो हृदयन्तःस्थो ह्यभद्राणि विधिनोति सुहृत्सताम् नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. ॐ अज्ञानं तिमिरिन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः. श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति सपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पदाम सहगना ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधकांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये पंचाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद. हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So it's a very beautiful verse. I'll share the screen again. Nigama kalpataro galitam phalam. So if we see word by word, it says kalpataro. So Shrimad Bhagavatam is compared here with kalpataro. Nigam kalpataro. Galitam phalam. What is nigam here? Nigam is Vedic literature. Nigam is Vedic literature. And of that Vedic literature, galitam phalam. Phalam is one, which means the fruit, which may still be unripened. But Srimad Bhagavatam is defined as Galitam phalam, which means it is ripened fruit. Galitam, it's a ripened fruit. Ripened fruit of what tree? Kalpataror, a desire tree. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam shukamukhadamrit drava samyutam. And it has emanated from the from Srila Sukadev Goswami's mouth, so to say. Or he is the speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam. And, and there is a solid and semi-solid. So it is not very hard impersonalist sort of philosophy. It's easily swallowable, very relishable. It's a Galitam Phalam. It has come out of the Kalpataru, desire tree. Um, desire tree, Galitam Phalam. And Amrita Drava Samyutam. It is like nectar which is easily swallowable, semi-solid and soft. Pibat Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam. One can relish this. Pibat means you're drinking, relishing it. Bhagavatam. Rasam, juice. Uh, and till what time can you drink this? You can drink this until liberation, which is alayam. Alayam is liberation, and even beyond liberation. Pibat Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam. So it is so satisfying to the heart, satiating, that one can continue to drink it continuously until the point of liberation and beyond. Murahu Rashika Bhuvi Bhavakaha. Those who are in full knowledge, mallows on the earth and expert and thoughtful, they, that's what they do. They relish the Srimad Bhagavatam in this sense. So I was going through some commentaries of Srila Prabhupada and trying to understand the matter slightly deeper. And first of all, uh, Kalpataru is discussed somewhere here by Srila Prabhupada. And we understand, we hear this word Kalpataru many times. Kalpataru, desire tree. And in what reference do we hear? We hear it in reference to Golok Vrindavan Dham, a spiritual world where there are Kalpatarus. And where is it described? It is described in Brahma Samhita, verse number 29. It says, hmm, it says that in spiritual world, Golok Vrindavan, the houses, palaces, and spiritual land is made of Chintamani. Chintamani, and there's Kalpatarus. And the trees there are desire trees. Chintamani, Prakara Sadma Sukalpataru, Surabhirabhipalayantam, Lakshmi Shahasra Satasabramma Sevyam Manam, Govindam Adi Purusham, Ramaham Bhajami. So, Kalptaru here is the tree that gives you everything. And Srila Prabhupada has brought up this example. He's saying that on, let's say, on this planet Earth, there is a spiritual being. And we ask him, can you get me a glass of water? And that person gets you the glass of water. But it's not that that person can only get you the glass of water. So you ask him, oh, can you get me some other things? Just not the glass of water, but let's say I want some nice juice. If he has access to fruits, he can make nice juice and he can give us the juice. And so on. Whatever is required, that person will be able to provide us. So Srila Prabhupada says that this is a very crude example of how we can obtain or ask things from a spiritual being, and that spiritual being is able to supply those food stuff or whatever he can supply to us. Similarly, in the spiritual world, everything is spiritual, spirit. There is no matter. Matter is only belonging to this material world. Therefore, it is called material world. Everything is matter here. Matter. So even the bodies that we are sitting in will turn into ashes. Earth, fire, water, air, ether. These are the five constituents of the matter. And ultimately, our bodies will also dissolve into this. But by the magic of Krishna, of Supreme Lord, this matter in which we are sitting is evolving. It comes from childhood to old age, to youth, and then decays, and then become old age, and then decays and dies. But the spiritual soul does not die, right? So that spirit soul is the real substance, and that's spiritual. Similarly, in the spiritual world, Srila Prabhupada is explaining through these verses that everything is spiritual, and Kalpataru, desire tree, are spiritual, and they have potency to give whatever we want, whatever we want. Now, in context of this verse here, we see that Kalpataru, Vedas are Kalpataru. Vedas can give you all kinds of knowledge. Knowledge that Srila Prabhupada just explained in this verse here, knowledge which is related to politics, religion, economic, Arthashastra is there, military, science is there, medicinal, which is Ayurveda. hmm, Ayurveda is there, and uh, Shastra. You can learn military science, Shastra, from Vedic literature. Then you can learn metaphysical subject matters, chemistry, physics, etc. All of that is provided in Veda. Veda is like a manual. When a machine is made, with that machine, there is a user manual. And through that user manual, if you study it carefully, you can understand how to use the machine. and you can easily then maintain the machine. You can run the machine, you can get better efficiency from the machine, and you can utilize for the purpose it is built for. Similarly, when the universe is created, Vedas are manifested, and these Vedas are able to give us all kind of knowledge that is required to live a beautiful life. Hmm? So, you want economic development, you can learn from Vedas how to do it. If you want a spiritual life, you can learn that also. So, all kinds of knowledge is present. But of that knowledge, the knowledge which is ripened fruit of all that knowledge, that is what is being said here, is Srimad Bhagavatam. Hmm? What is that? Galitam. So, the Galitam Phalam of this Kalpataru is the Kalpataru of Vedas. The Galitam Phalam of this particular Kalpataru is Srimad Bhagavatam. Pibat Bhagavatam. Tasam Alayam. And that is what it is. Now, who has spoken it? It's spoken by Sukha Mukad. So, who is Sukha Mukad? Sukha Mukad is Sukadev Goswami. Hmm. So, I'm not sure if you have heard about the story of Sukadev Goswami from someone else as if now, but we can hear a little bit about Sukadev Goswami because Sukadev Goswami's name has come in the very third verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? So, who is Sukadev Goswami? As we know that this particular uh, scripture is spoken by Sukadev Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj towards the end of Dwapar Yuga. Now, Sukadev Goswami appeared on the scene where Parikshit Maharaj was about to die in 7 days by the curse of a little Brahmin boy. A Takshaknak will come and bite Sukadev Goswami. So Sukadev Goswami comes there, and providence, uh, 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 by the providence, Sukadev Goswami comes there, and comes many other sages and uh, Ved Vyas and Naraji and all the previous acharyas that you can think of. They were all present in that assembly. Now, Sukadev Goswami, was he always like this? Was he always knower of the Srimad Bhagavatam? Where does he get this knowledge from? What? How was he born? Um, how did he become? How did he become completely realized soul? So some of these questions can be there. I'm trying to mute those who are not. So in this previous life, Srila Sukdev Goswami is said to be a parrot. And in this verse also we see he's described a as a parrot. Shukha Mukha. Shuk means parrot. That's what is it. Shukha Mukha. So Shukha actually means parrot. Srila Prabhupada also explains that. Shukha means parrot. So he was a parrot in his previous life. Whose parrot was he? Was he an ordinary parrot? He was a parrot of Srimati Radharani. And what was his service to Srimati Radharani? Very important service. Sukhdev Goswami, in the form of parrot, would take the messages of Srimati Radharani to Lord Krishna. Very confidential, isn't it? Very confidential. So when Srimati Radharani was about to leave this world as the manifested pastimes in the spiritual world, she asked Sukha to stay in the material world. But that parrot did not want to stay here without her mistress, which is Srimati Radharani. So Srimati Radharani assured her, wherever there is transcendental pastime discussion of Lord Krishna, he will not feel any separation from her. So with this, Sukdev Goswami was left behind and he was looking here and there. Where can I go to hear Hari Katha? So he then chose to, he flew to Kailash. Finally, he reached Kailash where Lord Shiva is residing. In, in Kailash, at Kailash Parvat, he heard carefully that Lord Shiva was speaking to Mother Parvati. And what was he speaking? He was speaking Srimad Bhagavatam. So this Sukha parrot, he hid himself under the leaves of the tree under which Lord Shiva was reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. And Lord Shiva's eyes were closed and he was um, uh, completely absorbed in reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. And Mother Parvati, here and there, every now and then, she would say, because she wanted to assure that she wanted to pass message to Lord Shiva that she's hearing this Bhagavatam. Unfortunately, Mother Parvati happened to nod and sleep while the Bhagavatam was being recited by Lord Shiva. Now Sukdev Goswami, in the form of this parrot, thought, now what will happen if Lord Shiva doesn't hear hmm, hmm, then he would stop reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. So he thought of a trick. And parrots can make a lot of human sounds. Sometimes they can say Ram, 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 like that. So this parrot, he copied the sound of Mother Parvati. As when Lord Shiva was speaking the narrations, now instead of Mother Parvati, our Sukha, he would say, hmm, and he will make all exactly the same sound as Mother Parvati was making. So then Lord Shiva, finally, after reciting the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, towards the end, Parvati woke up and then she started to beg forgiveness to Shiv, Lord Shiva, that please forgive me. I could not hear your complete recitation because I happened to sleep. And Lord Shiva was very amazed. He said, Hare, Devi, if you were sleeping, then who was making the sound? Who, are you sure? Yes, I was sleeping. Okay, then who else is here? That who was hearing this Srimad Bhagavatam? Because Srimad Bhagavatam cannot be heard by unqualified people because these are transcendental narrations. They're very confidential transcendental narrations. They cannot be heard by unqualified people. So Lord Shiva started to look around, and suddenly he spotted a disturbance in the tree, and he figured out there was this parrot who was making the sounds. So immediately, Lord Shiva thought of killing the parrot as a punishment. So Lord Shiva took his trident in his hand and started to run behind this parrot. And this parrot, he 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 started to fly for his life. And as he was flying from one place to another, he was not getting any shelter anywhere. Eventually, this parrot happened to come to the hermitage of Srila Vyasadeva. And Srila Vyasadeva was narrating Srimad Bhagavatam to his wife. His wife's name is called to be Bitika, Bitika, Bitika. So while hearing, his wife yawned, big. At that point, exactly at that point, this parrot comes and enters into the mouth of Bitika, wife of Vyasadeva, and he goes into his womb. So Lord Shiva also comes to the hermitage, and then he says to Vyasadeva, "Did you see a parrot coming here? He was hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. He is unqualified, and he should be punished." Then Vyasadeva obviously saw this parrot entering into the body of his wife. He begged forgiveness to And he asked, you have already told that anybody who hears this Srimad Bhagavatam becomes eternal. This parrot, Sukha, who has entered into my wife's body, is already become eternal, my lord. So he cannot be killed now. Uh, Lord Shiva agreed with the logic, and then he returned. He returned. And then this parrot, who was in the body of um, wife of Vyasdev, he then takes the form of a baby. And then he stays there, not for 9 months. He stays in the womb for complete 16 years. Oh, there's some sound coming from the background. So he stays there for complete 16 years. Later on, this is Sukdev Goswami who becomes the narrator of Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. So that's the small pastime of who is Sukdev Goswami. Now we will hear how this Sukdev Goswami has come to this point of complete understanding of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Sukdev Goswami himself is saying that he heard this Srimad Bhagavatam. So he has mentioned many names in Srimad Bhagavatam from whom he has heard. So as he was in the womb, he was also hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from Srila Vyasadeva. It says here, 2.1.8, at the end of Dwapar Yuga, I studied this great supplement of Vedic literature named Srimad Bhagavatam, which is equal to all the Vedas from my father, Srila Dvaipayan Vyasadeva. So Vyasadeva is his father in that sense. And another verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is 1.7.11, states, Srila Sukdev Goswami, son of Srila Vyasadeva, was not only transcendently powerful, he was also very dear to the devotees of the Lord. Thus, he underwent a study of this great narration. So, in the seminar, when Sut Goswami was asked as to how Sukadev Goswami went through this large literature of Srimad Bhagavatam, how did he manage to study this? The explanation given was that he was transcendently powerful and he was very dear to the devotees. Therefore, he underwent the study of this great narration. And then here we see how Sukadev Goswami himself says that he has learned this from his father. So, as Sukadev Goswami took birth, he did not just stay there. And when he took birth, he was fully grown up man and he did not choose to wear any clothes or anything. So what happened? It is mentioned in this particular verse. This is verse number 1.2.2. Srila Sud Goswami is saying, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the great sage Sukdev Goswami, who can enter the hearts of all. When he went away to take up the renounced order of life, which is sannyas, leaving home without undergoing reformation by the sacred thread or the ceremonies observed by the hair caste, his father, Vyasdev, fearing separation from him, cried out, O my son, indeed, only the trees which were absorbed in the same feeling of separation echoed in response to the begrieved father. So he's saying, oh my son, in separation. And what is he hearing? He's hearing echo of his own sound. And he was feeling separation. There was no other sound which was coming. So because Srila Vyasadeva was father and very attached, so he sent two of his disciples to the forest. He sent two of his disciples to the forest, and these disciples went to forest and they recited two particular verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, which actually attracted Sukadeva Goswami so much that Sukadeva Goswami decided to come back to hear Srimad Bhagavatam and to recite Srimad Bhagavatam. And he mentions here in 2.1.9, O saintly king, I was certainly situated perfectly in transcendence, yet I was still attracted by the delineation of the pastimes of the Lord, who is described by enlightened verses. So, what are these verses doing? They are enlightened verses. They are already, these verses are pure pastimes of the Supreme Lord in the spiritual world. And when Sukadeva Goswami, who's supposed to be a monist, which means he was supposed to be an impersonalist, who was more attracted to the impersonal feature of the Brahman rather than the personal feature of the Brahman. So he was already a liberated soul. So it is mentioned that we heard in the in the third verse, that even liberated people, they can hear Srimad Bhagavatam, and beyond liberation, they can continue to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So we can see how Sukadeva Goswami, who was in a liberated platform, was hearing Srimad Bhagavatam in the womb. He was hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from Lord Shiva, and later, now he's saying that he got very attracted by certain verses, which were describing the mercy of Sri Krishna and the beauty of Sri Krishna. What are these two verses? I picked up these two verses, and they're very beautiful verses. Some of you may have know them by heart, and some of you may have heard them before. I'm going to just recite these verses and read the meaning, and we can see how beautiful these verses are and why not anybody be attracted to these verses. Aho bakiyam istan kalakutam jigham sayapayad api sadhavi लेभे गतिम धात्री उचितम ततोन्यम कामम बदाया कम्बा दयालुम शरणम व्रजेमा कम्बा दयालुम शरणम व्रजेमा. Who will be more merciful than this person? Which person? This Lord Shri Krishna. Why? Who who granted the position of mother to a demon? Who is this demon? Putana. Putana was sister of Baki. So she's referred here as Aho Bakiyam. Aho Bakiyam. Sister of Baki. Bakasur is Baki. Aho Bakiyam. Stan Kala Kutam. On her breast, she had put a very intense poison, which is known as Kala Kutam. And with what intention she came? She came with the intention to kill Krishna, but she was dressed as a nurse. She came with the intention to kill, but she was there to feed the breast. Dhatri Uchitam. She was suitable for the nurse. She so just even though she came to kill, but because she came to feed Krishna, Krishna felt that she was suitable for the nurse, and therefore Krishna gave him the liberation in the personal form as nurse in the spiritual world, very close to his own mother, Mother Yashoda. Aho bakiyam stankala kutam जिज्ञासया पाययदप्यसाधवी लेभे गतिम धात्री उचितम ततो अन्यम. मतलब लेभे गतिम धात्री, that's the destination given to her. Dhatri means nurse. That is the most suitable destination that Krishna chose for her. Tato anyam kamba dayalam. Who is going to be more merciful than this Krishna? Sharanam Vrajem. Why should I not take shelter of this most merciful personality? So this was one verse. And the second verse, which was spoken, please pardon me, it's not by hearted to me. So, Varaha Piram Nat Varavapuhu Karanyo Karnikaram Vibradavasaha Vibradavasaha Kanak Kapisham Vijayantim Chamalam Randhrana Venur Adhar Sudhaya Purayan Gopavrandir Vrindaranam Sapad Ramanam Pravishad Gita Kirtihi Vrindaranyam Sapada Ramanam Pravishad Gita Kirtihi. We'll recite again. Brahma Varaha Pidam Natavara Vapum Karnayo Karnikaram Vibradavasaha Kanaka Kapisham Vajayanti Chamalam Randhrana Vedo Radhara Sudhaya Puryangopa Vrinde Vrindaranyam Sapadaramanam Pravishad Gita Kirtihi. So, this is the verse which describes the beauty of Krishna when he's entering into the forest of Vrindavan. And this beauty is so attractive, so intensely attractive that Sukdev Goswami his mind was completely captivated the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. So when Krishna enters into the forest, he's wearing a peacock feather ornament upon his head. He's wearing this blue karnikar flowers on his ears. So there's a mention here, Karnayo Karnikaram. So in his ears, which is Karnayo, in his ears, he's wearing this Karnikaram flowers and a yellow garment as brilliant as gold. A yellow garment as brilliant as Kanak means gold here. Kanak. He's wearing this beautiful uh, gold garment. Vasaha. Vasaha is garment. So he's wearing a yellow garment as brilliant as gold, and Vajayanti garland is there. So this is Vajayantam Chamalam. Five kinds of flowers are there in Vajayanti Mala. Lord Krishna is exhibited his transcendental form as the greatest of dancers. And he's going there as a dancer. And as he entered the forest of Vrindavan, beautifying it with marks of his footprints. So I'm just looking for the word for dancing here. Okay, Randharana Venu Adhar. So he's also playing his beautiful Murli, Venur. We can see here Venur Adhar. He's playing it with his lips. His transcendental form is the greatest of dancers as he enters the forest of Vrindavan, beautifying it with the marks of his footprints. He filled the holes of his flute with the nectar of his lips. So when he's blowing air into the holes of this flute, a beautiful music is coming through the flute. Now, flute is only some holes and a bamboo, but Krishna can play such melodies that even Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lakshmiji would have never heard that what he's playing, because he's the perfection of all kala. So when he's playing his flute, the songs and the melodies are so enchanting, so enchanting that even Lord Shiva would have never heard that what he's playing. So this is the beauty that Sukdev Goswami heard about Krishna, and he felt very attracted about how beautiful this personality of Godhead is. And then later on in Canto 2, 110, he's saying, Tad aham te abhidashyami mahapaurishiko bhavan. That very Shrimad Bhagavatam I shall recite before you because you are the most sincere devotee of Lord Krishna. He's saying it to Parikshit Maharaj. One who gives full attention and respect to hear Shrimad Bhagavatam achieves unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord, the giver of salvation. We will also see that he has mentioned two more names that he has heard Srimad Bhagavatam from. Who are these names? It's mentioned here, 6.335. When the great sage Agastya, the son of Kumbha, was residing in the Malaya hills and worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I approached him and he explained to me this confidential history, itihasam. It's not some imagination. Itihasam imam guhyam, very confidential history. Bhagavan Kumbha Sambhavaha. Kathayam Asmalaya Ashino Harim Archayan. So Agastha Rishi, which is mentioned as Kumbha Sambhava, Agastha Muni, the son of Kumbha, is mentioned here. Kumbha Sambhava. Who is the son of Kumbha? He is called as Agastha Muni. He has explained me in the Malaya Hills, about the worshipping of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Harim Archayan. So that's another mention by Srila Sukdev Goswami, that he has heard this Srimad Bhagavatam first from Lord Shiva, second from his own father, Srila Vyasadeva. Third, now we're hearing that he has heard from Agastha Rishi. And now fourth, he is mentioned again in Canto 6, 14th chapter, verse number 9. Srila Sukdev Goswami said, O king, this king is Parikshit, I shall speak to you the same history I've heard from the mouth of Vyasadeva, Narad, and Deval. Please listen with attention. So he has also heard this Bhagavatam from Narad Dev and from Deval Rishi. Shishuka Vacha, Shrununu Swabhito Rajan, Itihasam Imam Yatha. Again, he is mentioning it is a history. Itihasam Imam Yatha. Shrutam Dvaipayan. Who is Dvaipayan here? Srila Vyasdev is also called as Dvaipayan. Dvaipayan Mukhan, Naradad, Devalad Api. And Narad and Deval Rishi. So this is the history of Srila Sukadev Goswami. So in our verse that we are reciting today, Nigamakalpataro Galitam Phalam Shukham Mukhadam Riddhav Samyutam Pibat Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam Muhur Aho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha. So this beautiful Srimad Bhagavatam has emanated from the mouth, Mukhad Amrit Dravya Sanyutam, Mukhad, from the mouth of Srila Sukadev Goswami. So after hearing this little pastimes of how Srila Sukadev Goswami has heard this, who was Srila Sukadev Goswami, and Galitam Phalam, he has given this ripened fruit of Srimad Bhagavatam to all of us. We will see in the later paragraphs, Srila Prabhupada is going to explain what is the ras of this phal, rasam. He has compared these rasas with the mallows, and Shri Krishna being the convergent point of all the mallows, he holds all the mallows within him. So it will be stated that the entire purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam is to understand Lord Shri Krishna. Vedescha sarver, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has spoken, Vedescha sarver ahameva vedya Vedanta krit ved vid ev cha aham. So this particular Granth, Srimad Bhagavatam, there is nothing else in this scripture. There's only and only, anything and everything is all about Lord Krishna. And therefore, this particular ripened fruit of all the Vedas, the essence of all the Vedic literature, the commentary of entire Vedanta Sutra. Srimad Bhagavatam is also understood as commentary of the entire Vedanta Sutra, is being recited here, that we are going to study stage by stage. So if there is any comment or question, we can take it now. Those who want to unmute themselves, they can unmute and comment.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the beautiful story of Shukadeva Goswami. This is so beautiful, very interesting. Thank you so much for that. Beautiful. Everything was explained very, very nicely. Thank you.
Thank you. So these are only 2 paragraphs that I've picked up. There is the further paragraphs I'm hoping that you will be able to get very deep understanding of all the rasas and mellows that Srila Prabhupada has explained. Because of the limitation of time, I had to stop on 2 paragraphs. But you will definitely hear more tomorrow. Well, I thought I'll cover at least Sukadev Goswami because he's been mentioned in the very third verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very, very important verse of this Vedic literature.
Beautiful, just wonderful. Thank you very much.
Okay. If there are no questions, we can wind up.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, sorry.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thanks for a wonderful class and story. I have this question from every time I hear the Sukadeva Goswami pastime. How come Mother Parvati falls asleep when Bhagavatam is going on? She's not like conditioned souls like us, at least like me. So is it just to happen this pastime, or what's the actual reason behind for Mother Parvati to fall asleep?
No, so I haven't heard of any particular reason. And sleeping of Mother Parvati, we sleep, conditioned souls. She is the eternal energy of the Lord. How can she sleep? It's only to facilitate this pastime. Material energy is expansion of Mother Parvati. So this is just to, my understanding is just to facilitate this particular pastime. Many people sleep during Srimad Bhagavatam, specifically in the morning classes or evening classes, and Srimad Bhagavatam class is going on. You can see, sometimes we sleep. So there's a pastime around that. Sometime else I will recollect the pastime properly and then recite to you that why we sleep during Srimad Bhagavatam, which is related to the sleep of Kumbhakaran, some other time, some other day. But for Mother Parvati, those kind of reasons are not appropriate. She is eternal consort of external energy of Krishna. This is just to facilitate, in my opinion.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Even I thought the same thing, but I just want to confirm. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Where can we read about Sukadev Goswami? So today what I have recited are many verses that I picked up from Srimad Bhagavatam, which talks about Sukadev Goswami. The pastimes of Sukadev Goswami, I've heard them from various senior devotees. I've also seen an article on that on iskondesiretory.com. Perhaps one can go and read more about Srila Sukadev Goswami. But what we discussed today, his life, I haven't seen anything more than that anywhere else. So there isn't a full life story of Sukadev Goswami. It's just that he appeared and then later on he recited the Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit. So I would not believe if there exists a very detailed or vast literature about Srila Sukadev Goswami more than what we already know. If I do come across something, I'll pass on that information. Yashwini Sachi Mataji.
Thank you.
Okay. So is that all for today? Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Vanchakal Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhabhescha Pita Nam Bhavne Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for wonderful.
Thank you for the
Hare
wonderful
Krishna,
class.
Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.